Yeah, so if you look at what's happened over the last since August, right, August 19th,
Right.
if you just sort of like this is a daily chart, if you draw the line from here, it's going to cover some, it's going to have some wicks, but it's going to sort of get the majority of them. It's creating this megaphone pattern, and it continues to go from the bottom of the megaphone to the top. It
Right.
just continues to go to the bottom, to the top, then the bottom, to the top. This one didn't get all the way there, but then it got all the way to the bottom, then the top. So no matter how big the megaphone gets, it keeps on sort of going from bottom to the top.
Right.
Now, that's not gonna do that forever, obviously, but clearly that there's a trend line here and there's a trend line here. At least these trend lines are sort of strong because they tend to remain inside. So the time that it broke out was over here, which turned out to be a false breakout temporarily today.
Right.
And if you zoom into what happened today, if you zoom into what happened today, we talked about it in the trade ideas. Basically we wanted to buy the back test of
Right.
170. So if you notice, it opened around here. It back tested 170 very, very cleanly, and then it dropped down to 160, 164. Okay, so it dropped down to 164. So
Right.
if you played it out exactly, overall it turned out to be an average trade just because there was all these other catalysts coming up
Right.
with Powell and Snow and all this. But we talked about that in the trade ideas, right?
Right.
So the goal was to have this trade work out before Powell, and it was just slow moving. But if you got in at 170 and then got out before Powell, you could have actually made money on it. And
Makes
then
sense.
and then honestly, if Powell said something negative, it would have definitely continued further down. So the idea was to take money off by Powell, so that trade would have worked.
Nice.
And then obviously Powell got on. We reclaimed 170 essentially. So if you zoom out, now we're above this megaphone trend line. If you zoom out even more, so now it's actually breaking out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So just like before, we would have taken calls here as long as it stayed above this sort of trend line. So the play is simple, play basically above 172. I gave it one or two extra points just as a buffer. You can, if it breaks 172, then, you kind of have like a lot of headroom up here. That you can probably go at least to 176, or if you look at, a line here, 180. But it also has a catalyst, which is Okta reporting well. Okta is, another cybersecurity. They
Right.
reported well. They were up, I think, 13 or 15%.
In the after hours?
Um, yeah. So, Palo Alto actually reported well as well. And so, they're sort of like best of breed within the cybersecurity stocks.
Right.
So I would expect, you know, Palo Alto to also have a positive reaction to Okta, as long as the gains stay overnight. So it
Yeah.
has a catalyst. It's breaking out. Also, Snowflake reported.
Yeah, I
They
saw
actually
that.
reported badly, but they
But
got
it's
bought
got
up.
bought
They
up,
were
yeah.
actually down
20%,
to
something
where
like
was
that.
it? Yeah, they were down like 17, no, yeah, 13, 14%. So they
Right.
closed at 140. They were down to like 124 um, in the after hours, but then they got bought up like 15 points. So I think right now they're at 132 or something like that.
Dude,
Or
that could
sorry,
be,
138,
yeah,
I think.
that could be
So
a good setup as well. If, for example, if Snow Dip continues to get bought up in the pre-market, that could be a
yeah,
good, yeah.
so I liked that one. I just didn't see like so basically it's like this is a pattern for snow, right? So what it did was, it closed here, right, at 142, and then it gapped down to like 122 or something right here,
Right.
and then it got bought up around 137. So now it's sort of like in the middle of these two lanes. So I don't know what the levels are. Like I could probably draw it out here, but it's not a clear like that's why I don't like it as much as PANW, because PANW is like right here. You know, it's on
Right.
top of. So now, yeah, it could work. I just don't know what the level I would sort of like take the trade on. It would just be sort of randomly picking, randomly sort of buying the open, you know,
Makes sense.
which I'm not a fan of. It could work, but you know, I'm not a fan of that. If it was like over here or something, or over here, then I would say for sure. But yeah, that's just how I feel. But anyway, the point is, it got bought up. So high growth is getting bought up. Cybersecurity is getting bought up. Palo Alto's breaking out. You know, has Catalyst. ES is above already breaking out. So it has like all the positive things. So
Right.
that's why I like Palo Alto.
Nice.
So that was a long explanation, but it's all in the trade ideas.
Nice. Um, do you want to just give you a quick recap on ES, or
ES,
like
yeah.
how would you trade it tomorrow?
Yikes.
If
Okay, so yikes is
man,
man,
such
the
a
screen candle.
great breakout, dude. Like
Yeah.
these are the days
Um,
when you make money.
yeah, tell me about it. So I have this trend line, right, which is sort of a little hard to see. I think this moved. Oh, sure.
And I think you did really well when you played it on CPI, which was a very similar trend day.
Yeah, but that one I did well on because I had calls pre-market, you know, and they were actually my hedges, but the move was so big,
That you're hedged
it
out.
worked out. But then at open, I bought the back test also, and so that's where I made the real money, you know.
Makes
But
sense.
there was no pullback today, so it was hard to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so ES, obviously, so this is the big trend line that matters right here.
Right.
You know, from 2022, this is the big one. So as you can see, we are basically testing it very
Yeah.
closely. I think it's going to be around 4100 to 40. It's probably going to be like a range, you know. It's probably going to be like 4100 to 4020 somewhere,
Right.
4120. So I would, you know, and on ES, I think the 200-day moving average is also like somewhere around here. Let me see if I turn it on. Okay, so
So we
200-day
broke
moving
out
average
lower.
is 4040. Yeah, and on SPX it's 4050.
Right.
Still, so I guess, you know, these are sort of, if I draw this out, I would like for a back test probably of at least the 40, the 50, the 200-day moving average.
Right.
So I would maybe take a shot here, or I would take a shot basically on the back test of this range here, which was around 40, what, 4035.
Right.
Yeah, 4035. So that's probably a range I would you know, go along. Now I see sort of like the upside being capped around here, so I would probably take a short position around 4120 if we get there tomorrow. Especially if we make like a lower high
Right.
in supply. So let's see, if I draw like a supply line here. So the way I draw supply is price range. So pick the top. Well, I think even a 4-hour supply. Yeah, there you go. So you pick something like where there's multiple sort of like congregation of prices. So something like this, you know, here and here, something like this probably is. All right, so let's see if I can zoom in. Yeah, so I think you want to take like multiple candles in here, the bottom wicks of it, all this sort of like accumulation.
Right.
That's sort of how I've learned. I mean, I'm still learning how to like build supply zones and stuff. Yeah, so see, even over here, if you go further back, there's a lot of accumulation happening here. So this is probably a good supply zone. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but probably around here. So if you zoom out, that ends up being like 40. I guess it's a little higher than what I expected. But somewhere between this trend line and this supply,
Right.
there's a lot of resistance. So I would take a short somewhere over here for sure.
What about, for example,
Just on a move down to back test, like 40-50. Like I don't think this move is fake.
what
So
what if
this,
we open with a gap down?
where it depends on to what.
Like for example, around 40-50, 40-40, around that 200-day moving average. So that's where you look to go long.
Yeah, I would look for maybe uh, I would look for maybe a higher high first, you know, um, and then so if it gets up and then gets down and makes sorry a higher low, gets up, gets down, makes a higher low. I would probably buy at the higher low with the stop out below the 200-day moving average, something like that.
Makes sense.
Ideally, though, you want to see it get lost and then reclaimed. That's the most ideal point, you know. That's yeah. I would probably if it gets lost, I would wait, maybe 10-15 minutes to see if it gets reclaimed.
Right.
If it doesn't, then I'll wait for the next level, which is I think what 40-25 or something, and then I'll see if there's anything to, if the same thing happens over there.
Makes sense.
Here.
Yep.
So if you look at crowd, right? Basically, what happened was it closed around here. Let me zoom in. So it closed around here, right? And then it reported earnings and it gapped down to here, right? And then it consolidated overnight around 112, 115, like 112, 114 or something like that.
Right.
And then in the morning, it went down. And basically, if you look at what this is, I think it got down to 109. I remember seeing 109, 108.84. Like, you see it here. 108.89.
Wow.
Which is kind of the bottom end of this range, you know?
Right.
It didn't break, and then it sort of bounced off of it, you know? Obviously, it had a catalyst. Powell maybe it would have continued down if Powell said something bad. But this one is a decent play too, but it's already bounced significantly off of the bottom. Like 108 was the bottom, now it closed at what, 118? So then, then again, it's sort of in the middle, but it's a decent play also because it sort of bounced off the bottom end of the range. And,
So how would
this could potentially get up too.
How would you trade it? Like with longer term options or with shorter term options?
I would probably look at the day high here, and I mean, other stuff in the market has to also be going up, like
Right.
the sector specifically. See, it's like weird, right? Because they reported bad earnings, right?
Right.
And then Okta reported good earnings, right? They're both cybersecurity. So usually, if Crowd did not report their earnings yet, and Okta did, then I expect Crowd to move on Okta. But Crowd reported their earnings, and it was bad. So I don't know if they'll get bought up on Okta earnings. You know what I mean?
Makes
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe they will. They got bought up today, right?
That's true.
But that's why I like PANW as a better play, because PANW reported well also.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're at the top of the range. So it's relative terms, between if I'm going to play a proxy, I would play Okta as a gap and go, or I would play PANW because it has catalysts breaking out, top of the range, all that stuff going for it.
Makes sense.
But any of these could work if the entire sector gets bought up,
Makes sense. Yeah.
I just have a clearer trade plan for PANW. For here, it's a little murky.
Little iffy, but I like that because I like the risk to reward on it. It's testing support and
It could
bouncing
get potentially all the way. Yeah, it could potentially get, because if you see it's done this before, it's gone all the way down.
Right.
So if it get all the way up, it could get to 140 if everything runs. But again, they reported badly.
Makes sense.
So maybe it'll be weaker than other cybersecurity because it did that. So
Yeah.
You know, I expect the best reporting ones to do the best, and also
Yeah.
have the best technical setups. You know,
That
um,
yeah, that does make
so
sense.
yeah, that's it.